This is TradeFlow News, bringing you relevant news and insights from around the world. TradeFlow News, enabling trade for SMEs and economies worldwide.
These are some of the key topics that we will be looking into in today's program.
First, let's take a look at the overnight headlines which are impacting the commodity markets.
The dollar steadied against major currencies on Tuesday after retreating earlier, following comments from U.S. President Donald Trump that the Iran war could end very soon. At 157 yen and 73 sen and $1.1632 per euro, the greenback was mostly firm in Asian trade, down from Monday peaks. Global markets were sent into a frenzy on Monday on worries that a prolonged Iran conflict could trigger a global energy shock. Iran's Revolutionary Guards dismissed Trump's remarks as nonsense. Brent crude futures traded at $93 a barrel, well above pre-war levels, but beneath highs that were near $120 on Monday.
G7 nations said on Monday they were prepared to implement necessary measures in response to surging global oil prices but stopped short of committing to release emergency reserves, despite crude prices briefly surpassing $119 a barrel as the US-Israel war on Iran continues. "We are not there yet," French Finance Minister Roland Lescure told reporters in Brussels, after hosting a teleconference meeting of G7 finance ministers. "What we've agreed upon is to use any necessary tools if need be to stabilize the market, including the potential release of necessary stockpiles."
Moving on to the top news in the energy sector.
The cost of imported diesel in Brazil has surpassed the price of biodiesel, a survey showed on Monday, a rare scenario that provides additional arguments for farm lobbies backing a proposed hike in the mandatory mix of the biofuel in the fossil fuel. A spike in diesel prices is emerging as the most immediate threat to Brazil's farm sector from the US-Israeli attacks on Iran, raising costs for producers harvesting a record soybean crop amid an imbalance between domestic and external fuel prices. Biodiesel in Brazil was quoted at an average of 5.4881 reais, $1.06, per litre on Monday, versus 5.6740 reais, $1.10, per litre for imported diesel, according to a survey from consultancy firm Rayon Consultoria shared with Reuters.
U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin discussed on Monday the war in Iran and prospects for peace in Ukraine, just hours after the Kremlin chief warned that a global energy crisis threatened the world economy. The U.S. and Israeli attack on Iran triggered the biggest spike in oil prices since the turmoil following Russia's 2022 invasion of Ukraine, as Gulf producers reduce output after the closure of the Strait of Hormuz. The Kremlin said Trump called Putin, in the leader's first telephone call this year, and they discussed Russian ideas for a speedy end to the conflict in Iran, the military situation in Ukraine and the impact of Venezuela on the global oil market. Next, we have the top news in metal market. Gold in Dubai is trading at a discount to London as flight constraints caused by the Middle East conflict keep more bullion in the local market, while demand remains subdued amid uncertainty over the length of the war, analysts and traders said. Flows of physical gold through Dubai, a major global trading hub supplying Switzerland, Hong Kong and India, have been disrupted for 10 days as the US-Israeli war on Iran triggered widespread passenger flight cancellations across the Middle East. The market remains at a discount, but in thin trade the variation is wide, ranging from about $10 to $30 per troy ounce, said a Dubai-based bullion dealer.
China's iron ore imports in the first 2 months of 2026 climbed 10% from a year earlier, customs data showed on Tuesday, thanks to stronger exports from major supplier Australia and higher domestic demand. The world's largest iron ore consumer brought in 210.02 million metric tons of the key steelmaking ingredient in January and February, up from 191.36 million tons a year earlier. The growth was mainly attributable to strong December exports from Australia as there were fewer weather-related disruptions than a year earlier, said Alexis Ellender, an analyst at ship tracking firm Capella.
We will now look at the top news in the agricultural sector.
Malaysia's palm oil inventories fell for a second month in February to the lowest in 4 months, as a seasonal drop in production outweighed slower exports and a surge in imports, the industry regulator said on Tuesday. Falling inventories in the world's second biggest producer of the tropical oil could support benchmark Malaysian futures. Malaysia's palm oil stocks fell 3.9% in February from the previous month to 2.70 million metric tons, the lowest level since October, the Malaysian Palm Oil Board said.
That is all for today's news on commodity markets. Stay tuned to TradeFlow News as we continue to provide you with more updates. We also invite you to follow us on Twitter at TradeFlow News, which allows you to watch our program on your mobile device or desktop to receive information from there.